Tonight, virologist warns of a spike in COVID-19 cases if the Greater Accra Regional Security Council fails to strictly enforce the no vaccination, no entry policy at the beaches following a lift of the ban on activities there.
It has been decided by RESEC that the operators of the various beaches can go back and do business.
I will expect that the leadership of the various organizations who are responsible for these beaches will be responsible. But if, of course, they are unable to do that.
Tonight will interrogate the review of the safety protocols by the RESEC. Meanwhile, government has reviewed its ambitious target of vaccinating 20 million citizens by end of year.
The 20 million target we may not reach it by the end of the year, but we believe that by the end of the first quarter of next year, we'll have attained it.
We'll find out what this means for the fight against the pandemic. And Top Star is brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. My name is Ernest Manu. Tonight, a virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research is warning our COVID-19 figures could spike if the Greater Accra Regional Security Council fails to enforce strictly the no vaccination, no entry policy at the beaches. The council today eased restrictions on beach activities or business. In a review meeting with stakeholders, the RESEC announced that persons who will patronize any beach in Accra must show proof of vaccination or be willing to be vaccinated before gaining access to the shores. Henry Quarter is Regional Minister and Chairman of the Council.
You recall that on the 24th of December, which was last Friday, 2021, the Regional Security Council had an expanded meeting and looked at the status of the COVID-19 situation in Greater Accra. Following the report that was given to us by the rep from the Ghana Health Service, RESEC decided that the beaches along the coast in Greater Accra be closed before and during the Christmas festivities. Today, we have called for another meeting to review the decision that was taken on 24th December 2021. And at the close of the meeting today, it has been decided by RESEC, jointly with the Ghana Health Service, that the operators of the various beaches along the coast in the Greater Accra region can go back and do business on condition that people who patronize the beaches should show proof of vaccination or will be vaccinated at the point of entry. To this end, we want to thank all and sundry in the Greater Accra region for adhering to the decisions that were arrived at on 24th of December 2020. And we want to pray that they will abide by the decisions that has been arrived at again today by RESEC. Again, we thank the organizers of various beaches for cooperating with RESEC. So all we are saying is that they can operate, but ensure that they adhere to the COVID safety protocols, that as much as practically possible, people who patronize the place must show proof of vaccination. If they haven't vaccinated, Ghana Health Service are going to mount posts at entrances of almost all the beaches, and they will educate people and also vaccinate them. Again,
So that's Henry Quarte, the Regional Minister and Chairman of the Regional Security Council. My colleague Manuel Cranton was at that meeting where the review was announced. Manuel, were the beach operators there, and how did they react to this?
Also, Ernest, this was an expanded Regional Security Council meeting, which indeed had the stakeholders that were affected by this particular directive. And as you're saying, the beach operators themselves were there. And you remember that even before this particular meeting that we had today, the beach operators, under the name of the National Beach Operators Association, had actually issued a statement, bemoaning and complaining about the economic impact of this particular directive.
Many of them saying they had prepared for this festive season,
exactly,
and they were hoping that they would rake in some more because of the losses they had incurred during the pandemic.
And especially when you pitch that against the previous, festivities. In Easter, the beaches were banned. Earlier in the year, also in January, the beaches were banned. So they have, cumulatively incurred a lot of losses, and this Christmas was their opening, if you like, hope of actually making some profit. And then this directive came. So they were really excited that now the ban, which was imposed on their operations, had been lifted.
We have been suffering for long because the first closure, the effect it has on the beach, we can't tell. So when this one come during the Christmas, in fact, we are not happy at all. But today, we are very, very grateful to the regional minister.
I mean, the directive of the ban was enforced for just a couple of days, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, how impactful just a couple of days of not operating?
It has a great impact on the beach because, like we are saying, 24 hours to Christmas, and you just been called to meeting and said we should close the facility. Why people have purchased their items for the Christmas? In terms of monetary terms, because here we use VAT tickets, so the government will get its part. People are buying drinks and vegetables so that we prepare this, and the beach is basically about eating and drinking. But it's a toll collecting facility too. So while we have lost the toll collecting, the bar and the vendors too have lost their daily bread because they have to sell food to the customers. So all their things, as I'm talking to you, some have spoiled. But we are very grateful to the minister for giving us the opportunity.
But how do you defend that? It's just been a couple of minutes since that ban was reviewed, and already, I see people who are at the beach now. They're revelers. I see people horse riding and all of that. I mean, how do you defend that? You say you are not operating, but it seems you've been operating all this while.
We are not saying we are not operating. Even the minister knows that people used to come here small because the first directives that came, they say restaurants at beaches should open. That's why you can see that the places, people are jumping to the place. So that one, they give us the orders that restaurants at beaches should operate. So when you are seeing a scene like this, it's not new. They know people have been trooping here small. Yes.
So, Manu, that is Samuel Kote, the manager at the La Pleasure Beach. You were speaking to him at the beach after you left the stakeholder meeting that announced the review. And you, in that interview, were pointing to some revelers at the beach when we know that the beaches are supposed to be closed. You spoke to some of them.
Indeed, for them, they're excited that, after what you'd ideally described as a COVIDized year, they're able to now go to the beaches without any restrictions. For most of them that I spoke to, the requirement of having to get vaccinated before having access to the beach is not so much of a hurdle because a lot of them have actually even already vaccinated. We can listen to them.
I'm very excited to be at the beach with my family today. It is Christmas time and me and my family are at the beach having fun. We go to school the whole year and it's time for us to relax.
Oh, okay. It's good news that the ban has been released, that we can now go to or come to the beach. I've come with my kids, as you can see, and we are having fun. And I learned we are supposed to be vaccinated before you are allowed to come. It's a good news because the COVID is real and it's killing thousands of people around the globe. So I think it's a good news. So you get vaccinated, then at least you can mingle yourself with the crowd and have fun.
My family and I decided to come to the beach at the end of the year. When we got to Accra, there was a ban on the beach, but as we were moving around, we realized they had lifted the ban, so we decided to come here. But that wasn't going to be a problem. I think they did that because of the COVID, and that wasn't going to be a problem because my family and I, we've all vaccinated, so...
So those are some of the revelers there, the La Pleasure Beach manual, but there was some instruction to the beach operators on how to enforce this. What exactly are they supposed to do?
So essentially, people who do not have a proof of vaccination are not to be allowed access into the beaches. And so, what they've been told is to collaborate with the municipal health directorate. So, along all of the various municipalities where you have these beaches, the municipal health directorate is supposed to collaborate with them and set up vaccination points at the entry to these beaches. So, essentially, what you're going to have is that if Ernest Manu gets to La Pleasure Beach, he's supposed to provide a proof of vaccination, i.e., the vaccination card, or take the vaccine if he has not already, been vaccinated
At the beach.
At
So
the
if
beach.
I'm willing to take the vaccine at the
At the
beach,
beach,
then
then
I
you'll
will
be
be given my
vaccinated.
card and I can
Exactly,
enter. Okay.
exactly. Otherwise, as we've been told, a joint task force led by the Ghana Police Service is going to ensure that you are driving away from the beach.
They said we should contact the municipal health directorate so that they will bring their equipment from now to come to mount it at the gates. So anybody who comes in has not vaccinated, then they take the chance to vaccinate the person before you enter. That's what they said. Yes,
And so, I mean, beyond the municipal health directorate mounting its stand here, I mean, I see a lot of, vendors, paraded along this particular beach. How are you going to enforce that? Make sure that
As
people...
for that, when the president came out to say that these places should be visited with vaccination cards, we make sure that all our workers, including the vendors and the waitresses, we make sure that anytime they come in, we inspect their vaccination card before they enter. We have been doing that before this closure to come. So as for that, we have been enforcing.
But you are the head of security here.
Deputy head of security.
Tell me, so if somebody comes here, doesn't have a proof of vaccination, and is not willing to vaccinate also, what is going to happen?
Then we have to bounce you back. The directives from the regional minister is that the police should assist us to make sure all the protocols are adhered to. So we will liaison with the police command to help us do the job. We cannot do it alone. Although we have internal security also to enforce whatever we have to tell them, we also rely on the police. We have the marine police also coming here. So I believe together we can do a very good job.
Okay, grateful.
So we can now hear from virologist at the KCCR, Dr. Michael Owusu, who says this directive must be strictly enforced, or we could just be opening ourselves to another spike by the end of the year.
We have gone through this for over a year. I will expect that the leadership of the various organizations who are responsible for these beaches and other close gatherings will be some way, somehow responsible, and to ensure that with this kind of window that they have to allow their trade activities to go on, they wouldn't allow people to abuse it and get to a point where government will withdraw such kind of leniency given to these groups. This is not different from those who are doing parties and other people who are going through celebrations and even churches. It applies similarly. Ideally, for all churches and other organizations, mandatory vaccine should be required at a point so that people will be able to at least get themselves protected and reduce transmission. So I think for now, we just have to count on leadership of these groups with the hope that they will not allow people to abuse this opportunity, especially when Greater Accra is one of the hotspots for active transmission of cases and contributing to large numbers we are seeing. If they are able to help all of us to put in measures to support government, I think we should be able to go through this slowly and keep the cases at a certain level. But if, of course, they are unable to do that, I will not be surprised that the regional Security Council may come in again with some more stringent measures to ensure that they comply and do what is right.
And once they're unable to do that, it means that this could have an effect on the numbers.
Of course, you know very well that this Christmas festivities and many other activities ongoing is having a serious negative effect on the numbers we are seeing. And this is what happened previously in 2020 during Christmas festivities. So ideally, we should put in a robust protocol ensure that we cut down on the numbers. But in the same vein, I believe that you have to balance this with the economic needs of people. So if people can get vaccinated, if they are willing to subject themselves to the COVID-19 protocol, if they are willing to be very responsible to ensure that they support government and an agenda, I think it will only be fair to count on these people and to trust them and to hope that they will do what is right, so that they don't contribute to the stages and cases, but they keep these numbers down for us to move on together as a country.
And Dr. Michael also joins us live on the line. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us here again on Top Story. So you talk about strictly enforcing this directive in order to keep the numbers low. We heard from the beach operators on what they intend to do to make sure that this is adhered to. They talk about collaborating with the police and also getting the municipal, the district health directorate, the health directorate to set up to vaccinate people who are willing in order to give them access to the beaches. Does this sound convincing?
Yeah, good evening to you. Good evening to all your listeners. Yeah, this sounds convincing. I mean, I heard the voice of some of them, and you could feel the passion, the commitment. It appears that they're very much dedicated to ensuring that this is done to the letter. So we only have to hope that they will act and do as they are saying, so that things don't go out of hand. Ideally, beaches, people are excited, and sometimes they may forget themselves. But once the organizers have taken upon themselves to ensure that is done, I'm quite hopeful that they will be able to do this.
How would you advise that they set up these vaccination points at the beaches? Should it be at the beaches or somewhere close to the beach? Because you don't want a situation where people again are crowding, and that could also create some problems. Don't you see that?
Yeah, so I think that the Ghana Health Service has a strategy, and I know they have been discussing how best to engage in active vaccination, where they mount stands, they mount tents, ensure that people follow through the protocols and get vaccine accessible to as many people as possible. And what we are doing indirectly is a way of increasing access to vaccination. There is a paper published in Lancet for 6 different countries: Denmark, Israel, Italy, France, Germany, and Switzerland, where in France they found that introduction of things like this, access restrictions linked to settings like beaches and nightclubs, was able to increase vaccination coverage from 72,000 to about 487,000. So with government agenda of increasing vaccine coverage, these are some of the things that we need to do. Nobody is saying that you should take a vaccine, but the point is, if you want to visit some places which are considered high-risk zones for transmission, then of course you need to be vaccinated. So I believe that indirectly, as we implement some of these protocols, we may get more people to vaccinate to enable us to achieve the herd immunity that we aspire to get to.
Then there's the question of how safe it is for people to be vaccinated immediately and then given access to such a space.
Well, the Ghana Health Service has a protocol. Once you take the vaccine, you have to stay for about 10, 15, or 20 minutes for them to study. And once they see that you are okay, your body systems feels good, your functions and all body, how you appear and how you behave and everything is fine, they just let you go. I've taken the vaccine. Many have taken the vaccine, and you can bear witness to the fact that after 10, 15 minutes of taking the vaccine, you can drive your car and go your home. So I don't see this as a challenge. I think the main challenge is to ensure that this is enforced and to have the vaccine accessible to these places as much as possible, so that we don't have situations where people will abuse this and take things for granted.
And I guess it will be important to track this, to look at the numbers in order to review this. How do you advise the Ghana Health Service to go about this? the
Yes,
directive?
I believe that the Ghana Service will collect some data from this, the whole call an intervention study. So before this, I believe we have some knowledge of the level of vaccine acceptability or coverage within the BT. So after introduction of these rules, we expect to see an increase in the vaccine coverage. So I expect that vaccine coverage before and after will improve, and that will give us some data and confidence to go ahead and expand this to other areas that we think that it may work in our favor as a country.
And we were able to speak to the Director of Health for the Greater Accra region, Dr. Charity Sapong, to give us some more details on how this will be operationalized at the beaches. We're working the phone lines. Once we get her, we'll bring you that interview. But Dr. Michael Owusu, I want you to stay on for me because there's a second part to this. We heard from President Akufo-Addo in an interview with Forbes Africa talking about a review of the vaccination target. We know that he government had set a target of 20 million people by end of year. In fact, just 2 weeks ago when the president addressed the nation, he still referred to that target. But 2 days ago in this interview with Forbes Africa, there was a review. I want us to listen to the president shortly and I'll get your reaction to this.
I think that by the end of this year, the projections are that we would have received some 15 million vaccines. The 20 million target we may not reach it by the end of the year, but we believe that by the end of the first quarter of next year, would have attained it. And the significance of it is that the population of 30 million people, that's what we are, our latest census that we just conducted, has indicated that if we're able to vaccinate 20 million people, essentially we're vaccinating the entire adult population of Ghana. And that in itself builds up all the immunities within the population that we know about. So it's, as a target, it's an important target. We believe that we will systematically, we're getting closer and closer to realizing it. In the process too, we've taken some long-term decisions.
So that's President Akufo-Addo there. Dr. Michael Owusu, I guess it's no surprise that we couldn't meet the target given the challenges that we saw with the procuring the vaccines. Now we have a new target of the first quarter of next year. Is that realistic, given the work that has been done so far and what we have in our custody?
Yes, I think first of all, we must commend the president for helping us to achieve this target in terms of the number of vaccines that we expected to get as a country. 20 million vaccines is quite a lot. So, the government on this part has done, and I think that we need to first of all recognize that they have done their part, and therefore we also have to ensure that we do what is right. But talking about the vaccine in the first quarter of next year, this is possible, but this will once again depend on the strategy that we use. As I mentioned earlier, data across the world has shown that if you don't tie vaccination to access restrictions, it becomes difficult for people to take it out of their will. If you give people the opportunity, they wouldn't do it. But if you have to tie it to some services, you are likely to get more people vaccinated. So if we will be able to achieve this by the end of the first quarter of next year, then I will expect that some of the strategies that government has been mentioning, some of the things that they intend to do, will come into force. So I will expect that for all health facilities, for instance, if you don't vaccinate, you don't have a business there. We also expect the private companies to support government. The banking sector, the telecommunications, they should also come up with policies that if you don't vaccinate, you don't have to come to work. I believe that the cumulative effect of this is what will enable us to achieve this target by next year. But if we don't put in some of these, my fear is that the vaccine hesitancy, the anti-vaxxers, we have an opportunity to once again draw us back. I hope we don't get there, but I think we need to step up our own measures and ensure that we enforce some of these to enable us to achieve this target, at least to help us reach the targeted herd immunity that we expect to get to.
Dr. Michael Owusu, I'm grateful that you could join us. That's a virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. That's it for Top Story, brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. My name is Ernest Manu. We're back with News Night after these batch of messages. Stay with us.